Welcome into Miami Dolphins Today. I am your host, RC Maxfield, and if you haven't already, I know a couple of you have, be sure to give me a follow over on Twitter, looking to talk a lot more Miami Dolphins, as you will be seeing me a little bit more frequently. And you know what? Next time, mailbag-wise, if you give me a follow, I will give you a shout-out on the mailbag. All you have to do is make sure you DM me and say you followed me by watching this video. Speaking of mailbag, let's jump right into it for this week's mailbag as, hey, we got this first question. Who's Tua's favorite target going to be starting this season and the end of the season? This from Chris Kyle. Well, for me, it's got to be Jaylen Waddle. That Tua connection with him is real, but looking at the Dolphins wide receiver depth chart, you're going to see Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, who will miss a game due to PEDs, and then you got Albert Wilson. Crazy enough, craziest story probably in the NFL right now in the sense of where he came from this early offseason to where he is now being a projected starter. He was a presumed roster cut, and now he has solidified himself as the wide receiver 3 this far into camp. You see Jaylen Waddle there at wide receiver 4. Now, again, they're not going to probably play 4 wide receivers at all times, but I think this is probably what they're going to do for a majority of the season in terms of where the wide receivers will rank. The biggest thing with the Dolphins wide receivers, it's strictly going to come down to health, right? Health will be the biggest factor this year. You have a guy in Will Fuller who has missed a ton of games in his career, and we'll go a little bit more in depth on that here in just a minute. You also had Devontae Parker, who has missed some games. Jaylen Waddle has also missed some games, as well as Albert Wilson. This is all going to come down to health for these guys, but if they are healthy, this is kind of how I see the wide receivers going this year, but I do think Jaylen Waddle can make that jump past Will Fuller, and if he has a rookie breakout, maybe not on the level of Justin Jefferson, but a historic rookie breakout, I think he'll be wide receiver 1 going into next season. Appreciate the question. Next question we have is from CJ. Do you think that Jaylen Waddle can be the number 1 wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins? Well, CJ, if you just listened to the prior question, I do, but I'll be honest about it. I don't know how quick it'll happen, and that ankle is a little bit scary. You look at his numbers from last season at Alabama, and he balled out, simple and plain. Tried to come out for that national championship game, as we know, but the hype just continues to build around him, right? You think about the numbers he put up and the one-play ability in terms of he makes one cut and he's gone and you have a touchdown. That happened a lot in Jaylen Waddle's career at Alabama, and looking at the numbers, it speaks volumes. 106 catches in 34 games, nearly 2,000 yards, averaged almost 19 yards per reception, and had 17 TDs. I mean, he is a one-cut guy. You get the ball in his hands, and he can absolutely go the distance, right? But overall, I don't know if he will be the number 1 overall wide receiver going into next season for the Miami Dolphins, just for the sheer fact of, well, is he going to be healthy? And maybe if Will Fuller is healthy himself, he can still have that role going into the offseason. But I ask you to predict it. Will Waddle be the number 1 wide receiver by season's end? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. I'm leaning towards yes, just because I do think Jaylen Waddle is a special talent, and that Tua connection with Jaylen Waddle from Alabama is real. Let's move on to the next question. This one from Caden. Is Will Fuller going to be the wide receiver 1, or is it going to be Parker if he's healthy? I'm glad you brought up health. We talked about that just a little while ago, but that is the key factor for these guys, right? When you think of Will Fuller and what he's done in his career, when he's been on the field, he is a hell of a wide receiver, but the problem is he has missed a ton of time the past 5 years down in H-Town. He missed 27 games the last 5 seasons, and not to mention, he won't play week 1 due to a PED suspension that he got last year. He served 5 games last year. Will roll over 1 this year. But he does have a tendency to have soft tissue injuries, right? Hamstring, quads, whatever it may be. He has had a ton of them in his career. But I will say this. If Will Fuller is healthy, he is an absolute great fit in this offense for Tua Tagovailoa, because they want to open up this offense a little bit more this year, right? You thought about that dink and dunk last year, Myles Gaskin. You had the dink and dunk as well as with Mike Gesicki, who's back and who will be an instrumental part of the offense. But Will Fuller can take the top off, as well as Jaylen Waddle as well. And you look at these numbers that he had while he was in Houston over the last 4 seasons: 77 yards long, 54, 73, 59. He is a home run threat every time he is on the field, and he proved that when he was down in Houston with Deshaun Watson. Now, the quarterback play will go down a little bit just because, again, Tua hasn't had that breakout yet that I will expect this year, not maybe to the Deshaun Watson level, but I do expect him to be a really solid quarterback. But this all comes down to health for Will Fuller. So let me know, how many games will yeah, there's a play on words right there. Will Fuller play in 2021? Leave the number in the comments below. And hey, I don't know if BetUS has this over on their website, but you should go check it out in terms of how many games Will Fuller will play this season, because they have the best deposit bonus in the game currently going on right now. Okay, let's say you go over to BetUS right now and deposit, let's just say $100 to make math easy on me. Look, didn't go to school for math, but here it is. You deposit $100, you get $125 to play with on the site if you use the promo code Dolphins125. Again, go over to the website, chatsports.com/bet, use the promo code Dolphins125, and you get a $125 deposit bonus back. So again, you get $225 to use on the site throughout football season. That could last you the whole way. And hey, guess what? You could even win some more with that free money that BetUS is giving away. Again, head on over to chatsports.com/bet and use the promo code Dolphins125 to get that 125% deposit bonus. Next question we got is from Lucas. Who are you most impressed with and least impressed with so far in training camp? Well, we're going to just stick to most impressed on this one. And let's be honest, it's got to be Holland, right? I mean, my goodness, this kid is absolutely balled out so far in camp. And I know what you're thinking, RC. He's not even listed as the starting free safety for this squad. It's Jason McCourty. Also, shout out to the McCourty twins. It's their birthday here today if you're watching this on Friday the 13th, August Friday the 13th. But Holland has been that guy for me that has just stood out in terms of takeaways. He has been an absolute ball hawk in the past in terms of that secondary where he's playing, and he's playing up in the nickel too. We mentioned right there on the graphic, he's versatile. He can come up and play in the nickel, and he's done that a little bit in camp, but I love his rangy sideline-to-sideline ball skills, and I think that he could be a true impact rookie for the Dolphins moving forward. Appreciate the question. Next one we got is from Jamie. Does the Dolphins defense have the ability to be number one in the league? Man, high standards there, Jamie. Absolutely high standards. I think they do. I will say this, though. If you go in with the mindset that they will have the number one defense, I think you're more than likely going to be disappointed. We know Christian Wilkins on that defensive line is the guy to watch. But talking about the linebackers, I love this linebacking core, right? You have Andrew Van Ginkel on one side. Agba, who led the team in sacks last year. McKinney and Baker are one of my favorite linebacking duos in the NFL. Moving into the secondary is where things get interesting. I went ahead and posted this. I got Holland starting at free safety. I get it. I know McCourty is probably one of those guys that could potentially start there, and that's how the Dolphins have it on their unofficial depth chart right now. But I'm looking forward here on this depth chart, and I think that Holland will be the starting safety week 1 for the Miami Dolphins. And if you look at that secondary, that's one of the best ones in the NFL, mostly due in large part because you have the best CB duo in the NFL, right? It's absolutely loaded. The defense is loaded with talent, right? And to say that number one is the expectation, I think is kind of far-fetched. But I will say this, it could happen, but I'd say no to them being the number one defense in the NFL. I do think that top 5 could happen, and I think top 10 is a safe bet. I'd probably have them in that 4 to 7 range with a little wiggle room if you allowed me that. But this team is absolutely talented and loaded on the defensive side of the football. But what you think? Will the Fins have a top 5 defense in 2021? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm going to go ahead and say no, but I think it's literally just outside. I think it's probably 6 or 7. There might be one of those blow-up games that always happens to even the best defenses, but I think the Dolphins have an absolutely loaded unit on the defensive side of the football. Moving on, we got Trent with his question. Will all the mobility and athleticism and speed on the offensive side of the ball, why not more RPO packages? Well, I think it's difficult to have RPO packages in today's NFL with a certain type of quarterback. A lot of quarterbacks can run them, but let's be honest, some of those quarterbacks are not keeping defenses honest when it comes to RPO packages. And I don't know if Tua Tagovailoa is in the category of keeping defenses honest or they just don't respect it. But I also don't think the Dolphins are going to put Tua in the position to run a lot of RPOs because They strictly just want to worry about his health and have a problem on the offensive line to begin with, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. You think about the Tuas situation right now, right? He's going into his first full season as the starter. He has upgraded weapons on the offense. The offensive line is a little bit of a question, but the RPOs, they're a possibility, but I don't think they're going to be the norm, right? I think we will see a few a game, but to expect them, in bulk, I think is kind of outlandish in the sense of you want to keep Tua healthy, and maybe they do it later on in the year when that offensive line is solidified more. But even looking at the RB room in the depth chart currently right now, I think it's difficult to have RPOs just because outside of Gaskin and Brown, I know Ahmed had some flashes last year. Those are your two guys that you're going in with, right? And so Gaskin is more of that guy where, yeah, he can run between the tackles, but I think him and Tua are in a perfect marriage type situation in that backfield because you can dink and dunk in the backfield, and Gaskin can make anybody miss, while Malcolm Brown can just absolutely go through that line of scrimmage in the red zone and, get you a couple TDs. So RPOs won't be the norm per se, but I do think they won't be the norm just to protect Tua. But I do agree with you that this athletic offense could potentially develop into more RPO sets. I just don't think it's going to happen right away. Next question we got is from Jacob. We relied on Jason Sanders quite a bit. Did not expect a kicker question on today's show, did you, Marshall? I bet you didn't. Yeah, producer Marshall's shaking his head no on that one. But should we expect him to have another big season? I say, why the hell not? I think that people do not realize how good of a kicker Jason Sanders is. And we pull up the depth chart right now for the Miami Dolphins specialist. Jason Sanders is right there, obviously. And you think about what he did last year. He didn't miss an extra point. He missed a couple of field goals, went 12 for 14, but was absolutely lights out when it came to extra points. And when you think about what Jason Sanders does for the Miami Dolphins, he's an absolute weapon, right? It doesn't mean you have to be in the red zone. It doesn't mean you have to be 10 yards within the red zone. He can still get you there from 47 plus, probably in that 47-55 range. I mean, he is absolutely one of the best kickers in the NFL and an absolute weapon for Brian Flores and crew. So, yeah, I absolutely expect him to have a great season and really be a weapon that some people, if you don't pay attention to the Dolphins, won't know about. But he's one of the best kickers in the NFL, in my opinion.